our youth can do in the world, in the name of their Lord and King, is an outcome of our schools, big and small. When the question is put to you, Catholic educators, administrators, professors, teachers, guidance counselors, campus ministers, librarians, lab technicians, can you sustain our schools, continue to form our youth in the joy and challenge of the gospel in today's world?
Our educational and managerial talents or skills will not be enough to be able to form, educate our young people. We need more than that. We need God's presence in ourselves as being entrusted with the care of His children, but also God's presence in our schools, Catholic as they are.
Catholic schools are resolved to continue providing Catholic education to Filipinos. They, the Catholic schools, say this because of the deep value they recognize in integrating the proclamation of the good news in Jesus Christ and formation in the Catholic faith with the delivery of excellent education.
As I accept the CAP presidency, I want to thank my colleagues in the CAP board who put their trust in me and elected me to be their leader. The real leadership is synodal in character. It is in walking together, not so much in agreeing with each other at all times, but in discerning the best pathways and positions through consultation, dialogue, and even debate, always bearing in mind the renewal of the Church.
Yesterday, as soon as I entered the convention center, I felt invigorated, especially seeing colleagues learning once again. For us, to learn is to serve, teaching and preaching is service, and we preach with our lives.
Far away from here, I could be finding other reasons, but I need away from here, where we can finally make it, you and I. Far away from here.
The Catholic School Heroes Award is a sweet song to my heart. Receiving this recognition is a great blessing to me. Today, I am overwhelmed with gladness that CAP, the association which I value so much, has been part of my life and which has been part of my life for more than 3 decades, has considered my simple work significant.
This recognition deepens the meaning of what I do and fires me with more passion for teaching, even at this stage. To our Heavenly Father, I offer my unending songs of praise and thanksgiving for all that I have and for all that I am.
The 2019 CAP National Convention started with three objectives in mind: to provide a venue to listen to the young and understand the aspects of today's youth culture, to find pathways of accompanying and empowering the youth, to determine ways by which CAP can formulate creative responses and innovative solutions to the needs of the youth and society.
Well, we could finally make it, you and I.
Blessed morning to everyone tuned in to this webinar. My name is Karlo Abadines, the Advocacy Officer of the Catholic Educational Association of the Philippines, and I will be your moderator for today. Before we officially start the program, may I invite everyone to spend a moment of silence as we pray and ask God for His guidance and protection in these trying times. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Lord, we want to thank you for another wonderful day you have given to us, another day for us to enjoy your creation and enjoy the life you have gifted to us. As we continue to go about our daily lives, may you remind us to share our blessings with others and to be life-giving in our actions. Be with us here today as we learn more about matters related to data privacy as one faithful community. Be with our speaker as he shares his time and knowledge with us. Grant him the wisdom of the Holy Spirit, and may your words of consolation, hope, and encouragement be shared through the speaker. Help us discern our steps forward. Help us learn as we continue the mission and vocation of education that you have called us into. Lord, these are trying times, and many of us are struggling. But we continue to hold on in faith that with you, all things will be well according to your plan. As we enter into a period of MECQ once more, inspire us to move forward in hope and faith as we face this pandemic. Grant us the grace to have deep compassion for those who are most in need and to respond generously to their needs. For our frontline workers, protect them and keep them safe throughout this pandemic. Send forth your Holy Spirit to grant us the courage, the hope, and the energy to continue to push through. Lead us towards the path you wish for us to take, a path of love, a path of hope, and a path of courage. We lift up everything into your hands. All this we pray. Amen. In the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. Amen. So this is the fifth session in the third leg of the SAYAP webinar series. Last Thursday, we had a session on delivering powerful and engaging modules part 2, through different modalities with Ms. Debbie Corazon Grafil as our speaker. Today, our session is going to be on data privacy. Before we proceed, let me give a few reminders. First, as the talk is ongoing, you may post your questions in the comment section of this Facebook page. We will be asking these questions during the question and answer portion. Second, please be informed that you will receive the certificate of attendance only upon completion of the evaluation form. The link will be posted in the comment section later and will be available online only until 2 p.m. today, August 4, 2020. Again, it will only be available only until 2 p.m. today. We encourage you to answer the evaluation form and you will receive your certificate of attendance via email. Please ensure that you type down both your names and email addresses accurately. Please be reminded as well that this is a free webinar brought to you in partnership with Cleaves Publishing Co. If there are people who are asking you for credit card or bank details to be registered, they are not from SAYAP. Lastly, we encourage you to share this webinar to your networks with the hashtag SayapCares, #ILoveCatholicEd. So we shall now proceed with the webinar. I'm sure many of us here today are excited to learn more about ways to ensure important data is kept safe and secure. With the sudden changes brought about by the pandemic, there is a need to use new technologies and to hold more activities online to ensure that we deliver the quality education we are committed to. How do we engage a digitally connected world safely and more responsibly? What data privacy guidelines and practices must we begin to institutionalize in our schools to ensure the security of our schools, our staff, and as well as our students? And so for this webinar dubbed Private Matters, Data Privacy in an Online World, we have invited a special guest, Attorney Edgar Pascua II, to share his knowledge on this important topic. Attorney Edgar Pascua II is a faculty member of the Humanities and Letters Cluster and a professor in the College of Law of the Ateneo de Davao University, where he teaches subjects in philosophy, logic, ethics, and law. He is a senior partner and co-founder of Quintanar and Pascua Lawyers in Davao and has co-written a number of books, A Companion to the Logical Thinking, A Companion to the Science of Correct Reasoning, and Elements of Logic, an Integrative Approach. Attorney Pascua assumed the position of University Registrar for Tertiary Education of the Ateneo de Davao University on August 1, 2011, and has concurrently been its University Data Protection Officer since September 2018. No? So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Attorney Pasco for his presentation. So virtual palakpak po para sa ating speaker today.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me here. It's an honor of mine to be amongst the members of the Academe. Um, Before I begin, I would like everyone to take down or make note of my email address. I understand that there may be questions which may be left hanging after the webinar that I may be very glad to answer through email. You may also ask questions for the registrars out there and admissions in charge of your schools. In my capacity also as the registrar of our university. So that's part of my advocacy. Today, my my role is to highlight on a special advocacy, my advocacy on data privacy, especially now that we are required or compelled by the situation to go online, to teach our students online, and to transact with our clients through the internet. Well, that's the new normal. Next slide, please. We in the university, sharing my experience, our experience, have made use of several online platforms for the delivery of instructions and services. For the delivery of services, well, we have our um, school created systems, our enrollment systems, our um, our recording and digitized other systems. But for our online instructions, we have utilized available means. Most of them are readily also available for other schools. We have used Moodle, we have used Google Classroom, and for the virtual classroom experience, we have used Zoom, Big Blue Button, and Google Meet, among others. The thing is, at the present, we live in this new environment, the digital environment. With the digital environment, we are also exposed to vulnerabilities. These vulnerabilities are possible not only for our students, but also for our faculty members, also our employees, at the same time, the school in general. Hence, we have our reliance on the Data Privacy Act. Next slide, please. The Data Privacy Act, or RA 10173. This, this law comes as very timely because right now there is a so-called phenomenon. We have this new resource. We have this in the data privacy world. We call it the new oil. The new oil is data. He who has the data has the power. He who has the data has the influence. He who has the data controls everything. In fact, there is what we call data mining. It's not anymore oil or natural resources that are mined. Right now, we also mine data. I know of certain BPOs out there that engages people to do data mining. They collect and consolidate information and sell information out to certain clients. For example, um, I go online as a worker for that BPO. I go online. I look for Facebook statuses, profiles. I collect information. I go to Twitter and so on. And also, we have they may have partner commercial institutions like the stores in the mall that collects your information every time you buy a new gadget. They give you the warranty card. all this data they consolidate, and then what they do, they sell it out to insurance companies, to hotel owners, to resorts, to medical companies, and they sell it for a good sum of money. Like I know that it could the individual profile could be sold from 5 pesos to 50 pesos depending on the services where your profiles are being sold. That's why suddenly you get phone calls from people inviting you to engage their services or to avail of their promotions. And you would often wonder, saan kinuha yung aking data? Saan kinuha yung aking information? But that's it. Your data was mined, and you, the owner of the data, may have unwittingly or unknowingly been subject of data mining. So right now, as we are here listening to this lecture, being together in this virtual world, actually we are all resources. But we also have our right, the right to privacy. It is guaranteed in the Constitution. We have in Article 3, we have the Section 2 thereof, the privacy of our documents, papers, houses, and effects against unlawful intrusion, the privacy of our correspondence, and so on, so forth. This constitutional provision in Article 3 section and the respective sections thereof have been now clearly embodied in certain laws. We have the Anti-Cybercrime Law, RA 10175, and this one, Republic Act 10173, or the Data Privacy Act. Next. The Data Privacy Act has two main objectives. This has been advocated very strongly by the National Privacy Commission, of which all of us data protection officers or DPOs are registered with. I understand that in your schools, you also have your DPOs, and your DPOs somehow not only represents your school with the National Privacy Commission, but at the same time, they represent the National Privacy Commission for your schools. And these are our advocacies, these are our main objectives: to keep our data in our schools private and to maintain the integrity of the information or the contents of our records. We must maintain the privacy of our records, considering that these are entrusted to us by our clients, many of whom are minors, and although they have graduated, they have been entrusted to us by those whom we have served for several years. The integrity of information or data is important for us schools because, well, what we have in our files for the registrar's office, for our teachers, are more valued than money. These are possible credentials, qualifications, and so on. Minsan, hindi natutumbasan ng pera kasi information can sometimes be more valuable than how we see it. Next. When we speak of data privacy or the Data Privacy Act, it is concerned with data that is being processed. What do we mean by processing? Actually, it means anything that we do with data. The law defines it as processing is that which refers to any operation or any set of operations performed upon personal data, including then the operative phrase, but not limited to the collection, recording, organization, etc. So it's anything that we do with data, be it electronic, or be it stored or processed through automated means or through manual processing. So anything we do with data, be it automated or manual. So practically anything. Our teachers do data processing. Our enrollment staff does enrollment processing. Our human resource offices does processing. For as long as you have records, by the mere fact that you catalog it, categorize it, that's already data processing. By the mere fact that you have kept or organized data in your files, that's already processing. So the fact that we have data, we must be very cautious on how we process it so as not to offend the law. What do we what do we what do we process? We process personal information. Next, personal information actually refers to um, any information from which the identity of an individual is apparent or can be reasonably and directly ascertained, or when put together with other information would directly and certainly identify an individual. Personal information per se is information that you are readily able and most of the time willing to share with others. It's apparent because, well, it's it's readily available. Like, for example, your physical profile, you cannot hide from the public forever. You can hide yourself, your face using your mask, but your overall profile is readily available. Your name is something that you readily give out. Our names are our labels that we give out to others for identification. Our gender may be most of the time apparent, right? So these are personal information, are information that is ready and can easily be ascertained. So can we process personal information? Of course, but the processing, the collection, the storage and so on of personal information can be done if, well, the general and operative word is consent. Is there consent? Or if in the law it is provided in RA 10173, is there a contract that is existing between you and the person whose personal information you are collecting? Is there a legal obligation? Is there a national emergency? Well, practically, when there is consent or legitimate purpose. That's why when you go to the mall, fill up a form, when you fill up a form and give out to the store owner or to the store attendant your information, you are consenting to the giving of that information by the mere filling up of the form and handing out of the form to the teller or the attendant. So that is what personal information is, and that is how it is collected. There's another category of personal information. Next, we call this sensitive personal information. Sensitive personal information is that are those data that can be traced back to an individual and that, if disclosed, could result to serious effects on that person. What are these data? These are data which are not readily apparent, that you need to ask for or you need to inquire upon or look into the records of the person. Ethnicity, race, marital status. Some would say age. Age is very confidential. Religious or philosophical or political affiliations. This can sometimes be very significant, especially for political reasons. No? That's why information that is in the hands of a tyrant or of an abuser could be weaponized if you know the philosophical or political inclinations of the person. Information about the individual's health, education, genetic and sexual life of the person, or um, of your permit numbers, your SSS numbers, your license numbers, or other such informations that the law categorizes as sensitive. Next, generally, sensitive personal information, as opposed to simply personal information, cannot be processed. It is prohibited unless, again, the operative word is consent. If there is consent, or itong second category, this is where our operations in the school is legitimized in the collection of our data. If the collection is for by virtue of existing laws and regulations, and we perform our functions in records management and in records keeping because of the relevant laws and the PED as well as SHED orders, it is necessary to protect life and health for lawful and non-commercial objectives, for medical treatment, especially in the current medical crisis that we have, and for the protection of the lawful rights and interests of the individual. But next, the Data Privacy Act, if you read throughout the law, is actually very lengthy, very complicated for those who are uninitiated with the law. But actually, the Data Privacy Act can be summarized by looking into the rights of the data subjects. In brief, I will discuss with you these rights. First is you have the right to be informed. Second, the right to object. Then to access, rectification, erasure and blocking, data portability, filing of a complaint, and damages. Next, the first of this right is the right to be informed. This is the right, next slide please. This is the right to be informed that the personal data will be, are being, or were collected and processed. Like, this is expected for schools during enrollment. In our enrollment centers, we should have posted this in conspicuous places. We must inform our possible clientele, next slide please, of the what, where, who, when, why we are collecting data. So this is also the basis for our privacy manual and privacy policies. If you have your websites, if you have your information systems, if you have your LMS, your learning management systems, you should post your data privacy policy containing the what, where, when, how, why of your data collection. Otherwise, without this information posted in conspicuous places in your schools, in your enrollment areas or admission areas, or if not present in your LMS or automated systems when they are visible to the students or when they are available for your clients, they would be in violation of law already. You should inform your clients of this. Like if you go to your automated teller machines, di ba sa ATMs, you pause for a while, tingnan nyo yung screen. Yung screen ng ATM nakalagay itong privacy policy. Nakalagay doon, ang bangkong ito ay kumukolekta ng ganitong information, ganyan. Because it is required by law. There are some schools, so many schools that I know now who have not yet posted their privacy policies in their systems, in their online systems, and in their schools. But this is required. Because in order for the students and our clients to give their consent, they must be appropriately informed of their rights and the limitations and the purposes for the collection of their data. Mahalaga po yun. Next, the right to object. The right to object is when you object or withhold your consent to the collection or the retention of information in the hands of the school. For example, it's like this. When the students enroll, when our students enroll, they already consent, assuming that you have informed them of your privacy policy. When they enroll, they consent to our records management. They consent to the keeping of the grades by their teachers. They consent to the entire policy of the school. But what if in the middle of the school, the semester or the school year, may ginawa tayong mali sa ating records? Next. For example, what if instead of submitting the records or keeping the records private, we sold the records of, for example, our college students to insurance providers. We sold them to telcos. We sold them to whatever company or a medical company without their consent. They could object. They could say, "Hey, can you stop selling our information, our data to insurance companies? Can you stop collecting and making use of our data for commercial purposes?" They could do that. They could object. If suddenly you use the information entrusted to you for other purposes which are not contained in your privacy policy. That's why I am very cautious also and scared of what will happen with the implementation of the anti-terror law. Because nakalagay kasi sa anti-terror law, forgive me if I'm going to say this and you may oppose this, but nakalagay doon kasi, part of the anti-terror council is the DepEd and the CHED. And that is for me alarming because the DepEd and the CHED has records through our submission of our students. They could in fact compel schools now to provide for the schedule, provide for the enrollment status of students. And it's not only the students' profile that are in our records, we have the family background also. But that's a discussion for another day. So you could object to the collection. You could do so if the school violates their rights. Next slide. The next is the right to access. The right to access is the right to obtain from the institution our records, the records of our students. This is also kung saan nanggaling yung karapatan ng estudyante na malaman kung ano ang pinagbasehan ng kanyang grades, because they have the right to access kung paano na-compute yung kanilang grades. For the registrars and other offices in charge of records, our clients have the right to know what records of them are in our possession. Next, the right of rectification. In case we have erroneous records in our files, or in case our teachers erroneously encode the grades of their students, the students and our clients can demand for rectification. Of course, following the usual school protocol. Next, the right to erasure or blocking. If in case the school illegitimately or improperly uses documents, the students can demand for, they can object, but for the schools, unless we keep our records illegally in opposition to what is allowed by law, our records naman are more or less permanent records. But in the law, it's provided that they can suspend or withdraw or ask that the records be blocked or removed from the files. This is more applicable to commercial institutions. Next, the right to data portability. The right to data portability means the transferability of your records. For example, kung sa ibang setting, if you are, the law provides for this. If you are covered by the SSS and you suddenly go to public service, supposedly your records in the SSS is automatically imported to the GSIS. For the schools, it's different because there is already an existing mechanism for data portability. If you transfer from one school to another, our registrar's office can provide your honorable dismissal or your transfer credentials, and that's data portability already. Next, the right to the filing of a complaint. In case there is a violation of a right by the school or by the teacher, as far as the privacy of the students are concerned, baka nag-post ng grades si teacher sa Facebook na embarrass yung bata, the parents can actually file a complaint. Initially, they can file a complaint sa school, and if it does not work, they cannot be stopped if they file their complaint in the courts. Kasi mga bata yan. So the filing of a complaint. Next, if they succeed in the filing of their complaints, actually the school could pay damages. And there are so many forms of damages. Sa Tagalog, damyos. Diba? Damyos. Damages. Could be actual damage. Like, for example, if your records, kasi nga integrity and not only privacy, no? If your records, if the grades are erroneous, and because of your erroneous grades, nawala ng scholarship opportunities, napahiya yung bata, they could, for scholarship opportunities or employment opportunities, actual damages could be the value of the opportunity that has been lost. Next, moral damages. Sorry, back to, balik po sa moral damages, kung paano napahiya yung bata or ang ating clients. For example, lumagpak sa records mo pero sa computation ng bata ay hindi. Or hindi nagtugma yung inyong records ng teacher sa records ng registrar. Nagpagawa na ng banner ang bata ngayon kasi pumasa siya, hindi pala. So napahiya siya. Because of the embarrassment, the school could pay damages to the students. So moral damages, sleepless nights, besmirched reputation, anxiety, and so on and so forth. And there are other damages that the law provides under the civil code. Next. And also important is the right against breaches. Personal data breach or sensitive information breach refers to the breach which may be accidental or unlawful. Ano ang nangyari? Accidentally or unlawfully nasira yung records. Accidentally or unlawfully nawala or na-delete yung records. Or altered. Or na-disclose. Or nabigyan ng access ang outsider sa records mo. Yun ay hindi dapat mangyari. Kasi karapatan or right ng ating data subjects, ng ating students and clients, meron silang right against data breaches. Meron po siyang karampatang penalties. Next. In your screen, are offenses under the Data Privacy Act and the corresponding penalties. And the penalty po ay hindi lang po fine. May imprisonment po. So if it's sensitive information, it could be 3 years to 6 years of imprisonment. Kung unauthorized processing. For example, you have collected the data without the consent of the student. That is unauthorized processing. It's unusual that this will happen in the school kasi enrollment means consent. But for other institutions, if they process, like for example, yung sinabi ko yung sa mga tindahan, bebenta sila ng cellphone, tapos binenta yung iyong records, pinrofile kayo, that's unauthorized processing. And they have been keeping it for purposes na sabi warranty lang, pero they have been using it for other purposes. They could go to jail from 2 years to 6 years, and they could be fined up to 500,000 to 4 million kung sensitive personal information. Accessing through negligence, if you for example, doon sa because you were negligent, hindi mo na-log out sa internet cafe ang iyong access sa school, ang iyong remote access sa school. That's negligence. Some of us could be using the facilities na sa internet cafe, hindi mo na-log out. Tapos na-delete ang mga grades ng mga students. That's access through negligence. Or nakita ng isang taong grades ng kanyang kapitbahay. Tapos kinansyawan siya, bagsak ka pala sa ganito. And they have access to your records through negligence. Again, napakataas ng penalty. Next. Improper disposal. Hindi mo na-delete yung iyong file sa iyong flash drive, binenta mo. That's improper disposal. Or if it's physical file, hindi mo na shred. Tinapon mo lang sa basurahan. And it got into the hands of somebody who read the records to the grades. That was also punishable. Napakataas ng penalty. Or if you are a hacker, kinuha mo yung password, na-crack mo yung password, na-hack mo yung system, that's unauthorized access. That's also very punishable. Mind you that the penalty of fine is not yet the damages. Iba yung damages. The damages you pay to the student, the fine you pay to the state. Okay. Now, some reminders for the schools before I go to the practical tips. Supposedly, we are to register or renew our registration every 2 months before on the 8th of March or 2 months before of every year, you should have applied for your certificate of or renewal or of certificate of registration with the National Privacy Commission or the appointment of your DPO. But for this year, I think they are lenient. Kung hindi pa kayo nakapag-register ng inyong DPO or ng inyong systems, you have until they are tolerant. But if you have already registered, you have until March 7 of 2021, may extension because perhaps of the pandemic. So your registration is good if you have been already registered until March 7 of 2021. Part of what you are going to register are your data systems. So kung gumawa kayo ng data systems kasi nga online ang ating transactions, online ang ating instructions, you should register them with the National Privacy Commission 2 months before, 2 months from your use of the system. So if you're using an LMS or you have launched a data system, kung pwede, you comply with the law, ipa-register nyo po sa National Privacy Commission. Now, next, while we have been speaking of the law, I want to suggest or make reminders on how we could more practically or be more effective in our data management as teachers and employees. I want to address not only the teachers, but also the administrators and those who are working in offices in our schools who are handling records or significant amount of sensitive personal information. Because mind you, in schools, the records that we keep are not just personal information. These are sensitive personal information. Grades, di ba? We have our university or college or school clinic. We have the records from our guidance offices. These are very sensitive personal information. Kaya, if possible, you really have to heighten your security measures for the protection of this sensitive personal information. So, ito yung aking mga practical suggestions coming from experience and from my dealings with the other schools. Next. First is, for those who are working from home or teaching from home, napakahalaga ng passwords. So we have to maintain good passwords. We have to maintain passwords that are good and yung hindi madaling mahulaan. Dati, napaka-negligent ng mga email providers in the 90s. You have the password and then limited ang characters that you place for your password and then may backdoor. I tried it several times sa aking mga kapatid at kaibigan with their permission, of course. Yung backdoor kasi before, if you forget your password, they will give you a hint question. Name the place where you, or the city where you were born. Just type in Davao City or Makati. Okay? And then you already have an access to the email. Now it's more difficult. Wala na yung ganung backdoor. Meron ng mga napaka-difficult na verification system if you forget your password. But let's try to have secured passwords. If you, number one, the first step is if you want a password, you should have a memorable phrase or word. Kasi para sa ano yung password mo kung hindi mo matandaan, nawala na tuloy ang account mo, nawala na tuloy ang email. And some of us are too reliant on the saved email in our Google Chrome or in our, the Google Chrome is most common kasi they keep passwords, they keep cookies and the browsing history. So, yung iba hindi na sanay, they forget already the email, the passwords kasi nakasave na sa kanilang computer. But the password that you supposedly have should be memorable. It should be memorable. Second, it must be advised, it is well advised that the passwords that you keep must contain numbers. So aside from your password, the memorable word, you put perhaps at the end or the beginning a number that is also memorable for you. Maybe the year of your birth, or the year of the birth of your son or daughter, or the year or of whatever, your anniversary. I suggest the date of your anniversary if you're a husband, because husbands usually forget the anniversaries yung kanilang kasal. Yun na usually Hawaii So, yun na lang para hindi makalimutan. Para it's a constant reminder to buy your wives gifts every year during anniversaries. Diba? So, wives out there, thank me later. Number 3, next, you can replace some letters in your word with numbers. Maybe you can replace in your password the letter I with the number 1 or the letter S with the number 5. Diba? So, or the number 0, the letter O with the number 0. So it becomes more difficult to crack because right now, actually, my password generator out there. My software or app we call password generator, and this is what we use to crack passwords. But if it's a word with the combination of letters and numbers in the word, then it's more difficult to crack using the password generator. Okay. Next. Sometimes it can be very confusing because you may have so many accounts. You have your email account, you have your LMS or your school system account. Sometimes some of you have your Lazada and Shopee accounts. What if you have the same password for all your accounts? Meaning, you hack one, you hack all. Diba? So, napakadaling i-hack mo. Napakadaling nakawin yung identity mo. So, what I suggest is, depending on the service, you can add in your, as the first letter or the last letter, the type, the initial letter of the service for the password. For example, if it's a Google account, maybe you before the memorable word, you type in, you put the initial letter G before the memorable word, or at the end of the password, the letter G for a Google account. Or if it's Shopee, S, then the password, then, or password and S at the end of the password, so that you can segregate your account from the other without necessarily creating a different password. So, mas secured po kayo dyan. Next, you can also make use of capital letters interchangeably with small letters and numbers, and it strengthens further your password. Next, if you have to keep your password, do not keep it in obvious places. I have listed down here the obvious places where you keep your password para hindi nyo na ulitin. Kasi ang karamihan, many of us hide our passwords under the keyboard. I'm sure for those who are listening or viewing us right now, marami sa inyo have your passwords under your keyboard or under your phone or on your monitor. Nag-password ka pa kung ang password mo nakadikit lang din sa monitor mo. Under the mousepad, on top of your drawers, or under your desks. As much as possible, do not keep a hard copy of your password. Kung if you are forgetful, well, you hide it in places na hindi, wag naman yung place na mas ikaw you forget already the place where you placed your kodigo, right? But as much as possible, you don't print out your password kung pwede lang. By the way, in our Windows computers have passwords, right? Where we can place passwords. There's a warning. There is a software also which IT people, or not even IT people, hackers can use, or any person can use if he has the right tool. Like, I will not give you the software name, but I know what it is. If nasira ang computer mo, nakalimutan mo ang password, actually, they can open the Windows para sa'yo. So, kahit may password pa man, doble ingat sa content ng inyong computer. Next. As far as passwords are concerned, never share your password. Never share your password. When you share your password, it is as if you are giving the person the key to your house or your drawers and cabinets or vault. You are giving him free access to whatever private thing you have in your house. So, bakit hindi advisable na you share with your password with your office mate? Kasi minsan, tinatamad. Pwede mong pakibuksan na lang ang computer ko, pakitingin kung ano ang nakalagay doon sa folder na ganito. Never do that. First is, if it's a system password, whoever owns the account and enters the password is presumed to have been liable for the error or alteration. Electronic evidence yan. Kung may nasira sa file, destruction or loss of data, password mo ang ginamit, prima facie, kayo po ang may kasalanan. You have to prove otherwise. there's a possibility of undue intrusion or interference or access to your records if you do that. And then with the access, they could destroy your files. And you could also make vulnerable your private affairs. And as teachers, as record handlers, I'm sorry, we are not only compromising our records, but also the records of our students. And we owe them the security of their records. So never share your passwords. Also, please, para sa mga who are listening in or watching us right now, if you are the head of your office, make it a policy of your office na bawal talaga ang password sharing. Next slide. So, the requirement of the presentation of competent proof of identity. We receive emails or emailed inquiries. That is how we operate right now. We use the emails, di ba? We use our emails or our school emails. Sometimes Google lang kung walang official school email. While we can receive so many questions, we must not be too overexcited to answer them, especially if the questions pertain to sensitive personal information. May nag-email sa iyo. Nagtanong about the grades. Don't give it out automatically. You must require a government ID or a school ID for that matter before you give out the information. A competent proof of identity, kung hindi school ID ha, is a government ID bearing the photo and the signature of the ID of the owner. Okay? That's why a cedula can never be a competent proof of identity. So, that's why next, it is advisable for schools to have your official email account. I think it really is not that expensive if we provide emails for our students. Because if we have emails official for our students, it's easier to transact with them because usually official school IDs are pre-verified. So always require IDs. Okay, next. Because of our situation, most of the transactions will be in behalf, or many of the transactions will be in behalf of other people. So when there are transactions made in behalf of other people, you should require proper authorization. Exceptions. Oh well, not exceptions, but common sense tells us that kapag ang parent naman ang nagtanong or ang duly registered guardian sa ating enrollment na siya ang nasulat na guardian, they are presumed to be authorized. Parents, if the student is of minor age, or if the student is of school age, kung school age siya, the parents can inquire or the guardian. Kasi under the law, sa ating civil laws, parents have the obligation to send their children to school even after they reach the age of adulthood or majority, beyond 18. So obligation pa rin nila yan. Kung hindi parent, I think it's ideal that you require a special power of attorney. But the Data Privacy Act does not actually require an SPA because agency does not require the document to be notarized. An authorization letter may be sufficient, but again, require competent proof of identity para you can see the signature in the letter. Going back to the email, kung email siya, I suggest aside from the email, kasi madaling gawin yung email, if you are to be doubly cautious, kung may mga special requests for really confidential documents, you ask that the authorization be in writing, handwriting, with the signature, and you have the person requesting take a picture of the letter of authorization together with the ID. And if there are requests which are not authorized, walang proper authorization, wag po tayong mahiyang or hesitant to say no. Always say no. If you want a reason why we have to say no, maybe you should have taken a screenshot of the penalties for data breach. Always remember the penalties. Kasi baka yung nagtanong may issues sa estudyante or sa family and they could use the records for some court processes or baka may threat sa kanilang life. Ang tanong na yun pala is an inquiry that would compromise their security. Malaman na tuloy na ang student nila ay nandoon pala are going to your school or whatever. Next, inquiries over the phone. Next, inquiries over the phone. Well, phone calls, the identity of the caller is always difficult to verify. Even if you have the caller ID, you can know the phone number, but it's difficult to know the identity of the person asking the question at the other end of the line. As much as possible, do not respond to phone calls if you cannot truly verify the identity of the caller. But you can, of course, answer general questions. Kailan po ang enrollment? May klase po ba this Friday? You can answer general inquiries. Ano po ba ang grading system? But when the caller asks for grades, please do not give it out. Next. For all of us, when we send files online, we should be very careful because we are transmitting crucial information through the internet, and a single click of that mouse or of that button could, you be saying goodbye to the records or sometimes to your job. You must be careful and review the contents of the file first that you are going to send. Because while you are sending out a grade, for example, the records of this particular student, by accident, you'll be sending out the grade of another student that is already violating the privacy of that student, the other student, whose grade is actually missent. And then you verify the email address of the receiving party. Kasi there may be identical emails. There may be identical emails na kulang na lang yung sa isa .ph or yung isa is a number or whatever. And then you'll be misrouting the letter to a different party. So let's be careful in sending out emails. Be certain that you are sending it out to the right email address. Also, before sending out the email, check the legitimacy of the purpose for the request. Always check. Bakit niya hinihingi sa akin ito? Remember, once it's sent out, hindi na siya pwede bawiin. Hindi na siya pwedeng bawiin. Sorry for the Bisaya. Hindi na siya pwedeng bawiin. You can never take it back again. Also, the capacity of the receiving party. What authority does he have to receive it? Is he authorized by a special power of attorney? Is he authorized by his office? Maybe if you're from the guidance office, nagbigay kayo ng record on a sensitive evaluation of a student to an associate or an administrative assistant, a secretary, who should not even be privy to that very confidential record about the student's psychological behavior. Next. You have also to be cautious against unauthorized background checks. This is more common in the tertiary, when callers or email senders would inquire about the names of your graduates or of your students, their addresses, their phone numbers, on the pretext or for the reason that there are employment opportunities. Do not simply allow background checks because it may be for illegitimate purposes. Maybe they are being made under surveillance, and only the court can require you, if it's a surveillance, to give out personal information, dapat may court order. Kung walang court order, do not respond to background checks. Or maybe these are insurance companies or credit card companies. Or maybe if they are asking for the list of the names and the addresses and numbers of prospective employees, when actually they are going to sell the list to medical suppliers for insurance companies. So do not simply respond to background checks. Be extra careful and identify the um, authenticity of the background checker or the legitimacy of the request. Next, do not post personal information, especially sensitive personal information, online or in public spaces without the consent of our data subjects. Actually, bawal po ang mag-post ng grades ng ating estudyante. Bawal na bawal po. Bawal po na i-post ang schedule ng ating mga estudyante with their names. Bawal po for their security. Any sensitive personal information. Actually, you have to ask permission, in fact, from the parents before you could post the pictures of their students, because these are personal information that the parents may not be willing to share. Especially if you are handling a special school, some parents would not want their special kids, the photos of their special kids, be posted online. Next. This is very common. Video conferencing. We may be using Zoom or Google Meet or the big blue button. When we are doing our classes or conferences from home, we should be extra careful or cautious also. We are not supposed to give out our meeting details, our Zoom details, our Google details, because there's such a phenomenon, especially sa Zoom. It's most common sa Zoom, so-called Zoom bombing. Remember, in Singapore yata or some other country, naging issue yung isang Google Zoom meeting kasi may nagpalabas ng porn. Ganon. Okay. Also, if you have to do your classes by Zoom, before you do screen sharing, minimize or you remove personal files. You shut down windows or yung mga documents that should not be viewed by your students. Baka maging center kayo ng joke. So be careful. But here, as far as the details are concerned, that's why for webinars like this, only a few are given the links. The public is not given the links and the access is given through Facebook. It's for security purposes actually. Next. So there's such a thing as discrete conferencing or discrete virtual classes. If possible, do not share highly confidential information through Google Meet or Zoom during conferences or classes. If you have to send out information, send it individually through emails. Do not post it sa Google Meet or do not share it sa Zoom for security purposes. To protect your personal privacy, always mute yourself when you enter the conference room. Mute it upon entry. Unmute yourself only when it is your time to talk. It's not only a matter of courtesy. Kasi minsan maingay while people are talking, your background noise, yung ewan ko bakit during the time na nagle-lecture tayo, maingay ang manok at saka aso or ang kapitbahay, may nagvi-video, okay. That's why it's good if you have noise cancelling headphones. But always mute when it's not yet your time to talk. Because baka pagpasok mo ng iyong Zoom or Google Meet, hindi mo na mute, baka madinig ng students mo or na mga kasamahan mo yung private conversation you have with your spouse or your children. Also, use your cam only when necessary. Be prudent in using your cameras. Do not be careless in using your cameras because sa likod ng iyong camera, there is a background also that could involve also the privacy of others. That's why it is advisable, it's advisable na if you do not have a workspace that is free from yung background na in view, you do the virtual background. You do the virtual background if it's Zoom. And also, if you have to teach using Zoom or Google Meet, dapat nasa maayos na lugar. Huwag naman doon sa iyong bedroom na nakikita yung iyong kama kasi baka bigyan ng malis ng estudyante gawin kayong meme. They are fond of doing that to us. Mag-ayos din naman tayo. Baka gawin tayong meme, especially kung mahilig kayong magbigay ng feeling mark. So, be careful with your Zoom video. Always, properly dress up when you have to meet your students. Wag naman yung as if you're going to the school. Parang have that semblance of normalcy when you conduct your Zoom meetings or Google meetings. Because although it's a virtual classroom, still you get to see each other. Next. Mahalaga po na you do not post screen grabs of your Zoom meetings or Zoom class or Google Meet class, and then you post it online. You screenshot and you post it online. Kasi remember, we have minors and vulnerable adults who may be offended or who may not have given their consent to your posting. Okay? So never post Zoom meetings. Next. For those who are of course, it's advisable na we don't only do the online class using the Google Meet or Zoom kasi we have to use our LMS also where we have our notes, where we have our resources. For our LMS, you only post what you want to be made public. The reality is whatever you post public can always be taken and recorded. Even videos like this, although there is no option for downloading, iPhones and some apps could record screens. So when you want to post anything online, be sure that you are willing to make it public already. If you want to post your notes online, be sure that you are willing to make it public already because they could always screenshot it if there is no download option. In some provinces, actually, in some provinces, they do not have the LMS, or for those with slow internet, they do not have the Google Meet or the Zoom. What like in Davao de Oro, they have their AM radios or FM radios in collaboration with the DepEd. They give their instructions through the airwaves, and that I think will also prove to be also useful for areas na walang internet. But still, even if they are broadcasting through the airwaves, they should also be very extra cautious on what they say because they can also be recorded. So, next, while expressing your ideas, be mindful that you are also representing your school. So when you express your ideas, especially if you get interviewed or you get invited to seminars like this, when you post your or express your personal ideas, always have a disclaimer that you are speaking in your behalf when it's about the school-related matter. Or you avoid, you simply avoid speaking in behalf of your school because your school also has its right to privacy. Next. So, when collaborating from home, we have our group chats. It may be a group chat with our co-faculty members. It could be a group chat with our co-administrators or with our students. When we have to collaborate or be in group chats, remember, there is no such a thing as a private group chat. There is such a thing we call libel. Now it's cyber libel. Libel happens when there is a third party who gets to know of the conversation. A group chat is never private because there is a third party. It's not anymore a you and me because there is a group. You plus me plus the others, they are the third party. If you insult or defame anybody, that could be cyber libel. So, not only cyber libel, when you do group chat, what you post in the group chat could be accessed by everyone. So, you handle confidential information carefully because once it's out there, although like Facebook Messenger has the option to delete, well, they could download it faster than you could delete it. They could screenshot it faster than you could delete it. In short, when we do group chat, we should always be discreet. Next. While working in a shared space, well, this is physical shared space. Not all of us have an internet in our homes. So some of us work in an internet cafe or we share computers with our friends or our relatives. When we have to work in a public space or in a shared space, avoid public viewing of your screen. As much as possible, block your screen from the public's view or choose a cubicle because when you are encoding grades or if like in my office, the registrar's office, if you are manipulating records, the records that you manipulate in an internet cafe could easily be viewed by outsiders. So be cautious, be careful when you are doing your work in internet cafes. Next, never save records in a public computer or in a borrowed computer. Worst is if you save your file in an internet cafe computer. Never do that. Make use of your thumb drives or your cloud or your portable hard disks. Never save your work in a public or a borrowed computer because by doing so, you are exposing your records to great risk. Next, when you work in a shared space, borrowed computer, internet cafe, do discrete browsing. First, there is a thing called cookies. Cookies are what are used by our browsers to save to make browsing faster and to profile its users. Cookies save browsing behavior. The first thing you do when you get into a shared space is you disable cookies or you make use of Firefox. Firefox does not save cookies. But if you have to use Google Chrome or browsers with cookies, you must go incognito. Go incognito. It's in the options, usually in the upper right-hand corner of your menu. You go there, open incognito. Again, you open it, and then when you open incognito, there is no storage of browsing history. But to make sure, after every use of a shared computer, always clear browsing history. Always clear your internet or browsing history. And very important, always log out. Always log out. If it's the reverse of the password, if you have to have a strong password, also do not forget to log out. Next, you have to have a good working environment. With a good working environment, you have an organized filing system. You have a space where you can keep your private files secured. Actually, that's my working environment. It's an enclosed space. There's a TV there I use for my Zoom classes. But the purpose is to secure my work in a particular space. Next, I would like to share other tips. Next, okay. Before we, kasi konti na lang, no? If you have your computers at home, you use your antivirus software. Your antivirus software could save you a lot of misery. It could save your files from being destroyed, or deleted. It could even save your files from unauthorized browsing by outsiders. So do not download antivirus yung free kasi most of them are actually the viruses themselves. Unang download mo sa mga antivirus na free, ang bilis, nawawala yung mga virus. But after 1 week of free trial use, siya ay nagiging virus na. Siya ay nagpapaslow down ng iyong computer to compel you to purchase it. Next. Do not open suspicious mails, emails, or websites because they could also compromise your contact details na nasa phone book mo. So do not just click because simply it says na this comes from your bank or nanalo ka ng whatever or whatever. Kasi clicking on links in your emails could compromise your computer and the people in your contacts. Next. Please do not. Ma'am, sir, do not download suspicious apps or software. I know TikTok is very tempting for many of you. Ma'am, sir, sister, joking. But they say that when you use TikTok or Face app, it gives them right to your gallery and to your personal information. As much as possible, let's not use this. Let's not also download na lang basta-basta ng mga software for your phones or your computers. There is a list online of malicious apps. These malicious apps takes so much of your battery life and also steals your your phone book, the contacts in your phone book. So before you download, i-research mo muna kung gaano ka-legitimate ang software na yon. Next. Don't overshare. For teachers, for us, we tend to share too much of our personal lives. 50% is the lecture, 50% is a story about our love life. No, just kidding. But it happens sometimes because we get carried away. But do not overshare personal information. Remember that anything you say online becomes a public matter. It is shared in a public domain. It can be recorded. Do not share pictures that are, if it's social media, do not share pictures of private moments because again, that is shared space. Next, if you have to use social media, well, some use social media for their, I do not know their classes, but if you have to use social media, as much as possible, choose the friends that you accept. That will keep it more or less private. There is no such a thing as a private Facebook account because kung ikaw lang ang pwede mag-view niyan, wala nang iba, it's not anymore going to be effective as Facebook. Huwag ka na lang mag-Facebook. But what I mean by private is, do not just accept friend invite from strangers. Contain your friends list. As much as possible, do not use your Facebook as a source for your unless you create a separate Facebook account for announcements in schools, but it should be exclusive to your students only. Do not overshare. Also, next, you have to turn off your location functions. That's more for the use of social media. Do not. This is to disable unscrupulous intentions of other people of knowing where you are. Next, do not check in wherever you go because it become prompting you magnanakaw. Next, do not share pictures of others without your consent, especially if you have pictures of your students. Always ask permission. Remember, by the way, minors cannot effectively give consent. Ask permission from parents. Okay? They have no legal capacity. That's why minors cannot enter into contracts. So ask permission from the parents. Next, do not share information of others without their consent. Although not directly related here, i-share ko lang. Minsan kasi nakakapulot tayo ng ID, pinopost natin, who knows this person? Diba? So that's also an example. Do not share information of others without your consent. Posting of IDs is actually illegal because you'll be exposing others from the crime of um, identity theft. Never post IDs na napulot nyo. So much more yung information ng mga parents, information ng ating administrators, or confidential information of the school. Next. Do not post anything related to your schoolwork or students when not authorized. As much as possible, in fact, you have to only share what is essential. Do not share those which should not be shared. Next, this is very important. Please consider who is going to see your post. Although our personal lives are our personal concern, please be mindful that as teachers, we are examples to our students. So kapag nag-post tayo na tayo ay nagmura, we'll be setting bad examples for them. Kung nag-post tayo ng mga malalaswang pictures, you'll be sending out wrong signals. Be mindful of your audience. Although hindi kayo friends, baka kasi may friend of friends. Diba? So be mindful of that. Next, dispose of files properly. On your screen, there are software that is available for free. Na, what do this software do? Itong software po na ito can undelete deleted files. So let's say nagbenta kayo ng hard disk or computer na second hand, binenta ninyo yung inyong computer. Alam nyo ba na inyong computer or hard disk na kahit na-delete nyo ang mga files dyan, they could be undeleted. They could be undeleted. They could be retrieved. Kahit na dinelete nyo yan. Kasi when you delete a file, it is not actually lost forever. It is only marked for overwrite. As much as possible, wag nyo na lang ibenta yung inyong lumang hard drive. Sirain nyo na lang if you have to. Or just use it as a backup drive but never sell it because especially if it contains significant amount of sensitive personal information. Thank you. Next. If it's physical files, you have to shred your confidential documents. Do not recycle paper containing confidential information. Shred it. Shred it properly. Next, you have to impose restrictions. If it's your workplace, do not allow unauthorized persons in your work area. If it's your computer, do not allow others to use your computers. As much as possible, you lock your computers, turn it off or lock it to password mode when you are away from it. Because 5 minutes or one minute away from your computer means a lot to somebody who wants to get information discreetly or clandestinely from your files. So be overly conscious. You turn it off, password protect it, or if it's physical files, have it in lock and key. Next, again, since the data Privacy Act concerns itself with the integrity of your data, have an effective filing system for teachers and administrators and records managers. Have an effective record system. If your records are physical, have it kept appropriately away from the elements and have it kept chronologically or alphabetically or systematically to avoid confusion when you retrieve it. If you are using your computers, organize it properly in folders. Next, for very sensitive information, try considering off-the-grid storage, meaning do not store very confidential information in your online computers. Because if it's online, if it's always online, your computers could always be vulnerable to hacking. There is no computer in the world or a system that is hack-proof. Anything can be hacked. And our students and the people outside are very capable of this. Always, if it's very confidential, off-the-grid storage, meaning a removable drive would help. So, off-the-grid storage. Next, this has something to do with, well, this is physical transactions, actual transactions. your monitor should be facing away from your clients. If you are working in a window, your monitor should not be facing them. It's similar to working in an internet cafe. The monitor should be away from public view. Next, this is very important, the clean desk policy. Be it in school or at home, always maintain a clean desk. The physical desk and the desktop in your computer. The desktop in your computer kasi, kapag marami kang folder sa iyong desktop, masakit tingnan sa mata. It's very confusing and it creates stressful work environment. Also, your physical desk, only take out the files that you are going to use. If you don't have any need for it, keep it in its drawers or cabinets first. Take it out only when it is necessary for you to use. Aside from it helping out in your work behavior, it could also help out in securing information na hindi siya accidentally matapon ng whoever is cleaning your workplace, or baka makita ng student or kasama mo sa bahay. Baka mapagkamalang scratch paper. Also, next, you have to use, when you use portable storage device, yung thumb drives or hard drives, please keep them secure. Imagine 1 terabyte of hard drive, isang library na yan, isang filing system na yan ng registrar's office. If you have to keep with you your hard drive or your thumb drives, yung popularly known as the USB drives, you have to keep them like they are money or jewelry. Baka pag mawala yan, mapulot ng iba, they will now have access to a rich source of information. If you have no authority, if you are an office staff and you have no authority, do not store school files in your flash drives. You ask permission from your head of office. Or better yet, only allow people to access your, to copy files in their personal drives when it's really necessary. So, I hope I helped out a bit in our, well, that's my last slide, no? But I hope I have helped you in knowing a bit of the Data Privacy Act. And I hope that some of these practices that I have shared be very useful sa atin. Kasi at this point in our academic life, in our work life, we are privy to too much data. Privy to too much data also leaves us vulnerable to errors and abuses by other people. So with that, thank you very much.
With Cleves Publishing Incorporated, we assure you as our partners to be there throughout the journey. We are with you in every step of the way. Technology is continuously evolving, and Cleves is riding with it. From print to digital, Cleves got you covered with the products that we offer. Spearheading Cleves products are the Clevelets, an e-learning portal for teachers only, and the Leveraging Education, Augmenting the Future, or LEAF, for student-teacher access. For teachers, administrators, and school owners, we have the Cleves Shares. It is perfect for you in maneuvering fast-paced demands of the education field as we collaborate in creating a balanced amalgam of theories, pedagogies, and practices inside and outside of the realm of the learning environments. Reimagine, reinforce, recognize, to make quality education through a variety of lectures, trainings, and webinars in aid of instruction, classroom management, and institution management. These offerings are perfect responses. In connection to Cleves Shares, to provide service beyond sales, Cleves also has the Cleves Cares for its partner mission schools in providing them with capacity building focused branding or rebranding the institution inside and out. It also practices reimagining various school scenarios and responses to the needs of the time, reinforcing school climate and culture through different webinars conducted among institution partners and in recognizing the value of each stakeholder in the success of value-laden instruction delivery. Another product of Cleves is the Cleves Assist. This offering features a 24/7 hotline for technical assistance in the use and maintenance of the clevelets and leaf. Almost everyone in the academe can benefit from this, from the teachers, admins, and school owners to the students and parents. Cleves Assists aims to provide an assistance response team to address immediate technical concerns while ensuring the users the full utilization of the clevelets and leaf. It also offers visits with partners to address offline concerns when needed. We ensure quality service delivered through this hotline assistance to our partners always. And lastly, Cleves Thinks. Together with the partners, we provide them with external consultations for present and future research agenda, accreditation certification, and imaging one. Cleves thinks that with a client in full swing, it is redirecting the winds within their institutions. Cleves Thinks is for teachers, administrators, school owners, students, parents, and even extended service communities and collaborative partner agencies. Through innovative designs, proactive responses, and reconfigured goals, established institutions are on the verge of the fourth going to the fifth industrial revolution. Strong definitive vision is what's needed in remaining relevant and competent in this world. And this is what Cleves is all about.
Ayan, so that was really a wonderful lecture, no, by Attorney Pascua. I'm sure many of us gained so much in that presentation. May mga it's a very practical thing, no. Kahit nga ako napaisip nga ako, no, yung mga passwords ko minsan sobrang simple kasi ayoko makalimutan. Pero so yun yung isang tension din na nakikita ko, no. But anyway, I hope everyone enjoyed, no, that presentation. But it's not over yet. We are now in the question and answer portion of this webinar, and we will have until 12 o'clock for this session. So again, I'll invite everyone. You may continue posting your questions at the comment section of this Facebook page, and we will be asking it during in this section. Second, please be informed that you will receive the certificate of attendance only upon completion of the evaluation form. The evaluation link is going to be pinned at the bottom of the comment section. So please check the comment section, and doon na po yung link for the evaluation link, or it will be posted in a short while. If you can't see it, please refresh the page if you cannot see the link. Again, it will only be available until 2 p.m. today. And again, please write down your names and email addresses accurately if you want to receive it. And for those asking for the presentation, so meron pa mga nag-comment, again, you can rewatch the video after the live streaming. Follow us in our YouTube channel. And also the materials itself, the PowerPoint slides will be uploaded in our SAYAP website at www.sayap.org.ph. So without further ado, I think we can go straight into maybe getting some comments first, and then we'll go straight into the questions. No? So actually, a lot of the comments po, attorney, very positive. I think many people were really enlightened, no, by your presentation. But this is an interesting comment. I'll combine two comments coming from our audience, no. So the first comes from Miss Nufable. Sabi po niya, good morning. Sabi niya, that is our difficulty as desk officers in our schools. We are just assigned without proper orientation, no? And then I guess the second one connected to that is galing po kay Mr. Burse. Sabi niya, kaya hindi po basta-basta magbibigay ng school records kung sino-sino lang. May mga instances po kasi na may mga humihingi, no, pinakakuha. So may kailangan careful daw. So baka meron kayong assessment. What do you think is usually yung sakit? Parang are people aware of data privacy things? Ano yung kakulangan natin when it comes to this advocacy also amongst schools? No? Yeah.
This is a common problem for us in the registrar's office, actually, as the registrar of our school, because some people email us their questions about grades, about confidential matters, and we just simply inform them that we will get back to the question or the inquiry whenever the situation improves, because it's really difficult for us to give information online, especially when it's difficult to verify the identity of the requesting party. We could understand naman the difficulties of the other schools. That's why kami sa tayo-tayo, di ba, sa mga schools, even the registrar's office, have extended our patience to each other kasi we share the common problems on data management, especially during the lockdowns. Yung sinasabi na yung ibang mga desk officer nilalagay lang sa pwesto without proper orientation. Actually, what is essential primarily is prudence. Prudence lang talaga. We have to be very cautious on whatever information we are going to give. Only give out what we are supposed to give. We should just treat information or data as very precious. We could give general information, but when it comes to specifics, then that is the time we have to really exercise due prudence talaga. Kasi mahalaga talaga yung records ng students natin when it comes to our operations, di ba?
Yeah. Right, thank you. So I guess later also we'll tackle a bit of the social media, but I guess muna ito yung some questions, no, related to posting online po, no. Set po galing kay Miss Arnie. Sabi niya, good morning po. Is it all right to post the sectioning list of students, no? So mayroon po ng mga social media posts na lumalabas daw, ito na yung mga section, ito yung mga list of names of students and pupils, gano'n. So medyo pinapublic, nilalagay na lang sa Facebook page or of schools, no, para malaman ng public. Parang how do we deal with that, no?
First po, ano po ang nakalagay doon sa sectioning? Is it the complete name? Could be possible na family name lang siguro, just to mitigate ito. But anything we can do with our students' information for as long as they are consented, it would really help out, especially na for most of us, school will start pa this August. Maybe during the general parents assembly online, we could perhaps give them a caveat that some of the announcements like itong sectioning or whatever will be posted online. A general information dissemination para may caveat sila so that those who would not want the names of their students be posted online could just simply opt out so that they could only be messaged privately by the school siguro. Anything you can do for as long as there is consent, and if it's unavoidable, maybe you can be very, very creative. Maybe you can just post the family name siguro for the sectioning. What are the odds sa isang third year or fourth year level or sa grade 7 may magkapareho ng apelyado, di ba?
Yeah.
Maybe you could place the initials lang siguro for the names, for the distinction.
Okay, that's a good plan. And I think connected to that then, how about posting of the names of students per level who qualified for academic excellence? Baka dean's list, honors, okay lang ba yun?
we make naman these things public, di ba? We announce naman talaga
Yeah.
because this kasi are relevant to our operations. We've been doing this even before the pandemic. We post these names in our school bulletin boards anyway,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So it's relevant to our practice, and I think the parents already consent to the posting of these names
Yeah.
even in our bulletin board. So it's just the online equivalent.
Yeah. This comes from Miss J. and Galura. Sabi po niya, attorney, if someone writes, no, so this is related naman to social media po, no? If someone writes or says something to threaten you or something on the comment section of a photo you have posted in a social media, is it punishable by law? No, can I sue that person? No? So threats siguro sa comment section. How do you deal with that?
Ayan. Ito na yan. Okay. Although not so much with privacy, but it's you have the anti-cybercrime law, RA 10175,
Yeah.
which criminalizes or heightens the penalty for ordinary crimes. You have grave threats and grave coercions, which are already being punished by the revised penal code or under the revised penal code. But if it's done online, the penalty is heightened. You have to qualify. How were you threatened? What was the threat? Kasi sa iba kasi hindi pala siya, it could not be qualified as a threat. It depends on the context. Context po yan.
Yeah. So it really will no.
Yes.
Sige po, no. Ito po, this is like a tip I guess when it comes to social media daw. Sabi daw niya kasi 'di ba we were talking about how much should I post, 'di ba? On my Facebook kung connected yung ibang students sa akin. Is it better daw to have another Facebook account exclusively for students and parents aside from your own personal? So gawa ka ng parang parallel account daw, no? As a way to parang public your public account and your more private no? Is that a practice?
Actually, sir, sa tingin ko kasi everybody has gotten very comfortable to the use of Facebook.
Yeah.
Kahit na bata alam 'yon, kahit na ang mother ko na senior citizen, 75 years old, na alam ang Facebook. Mas marami pa siyang alam kaysa sa akin. Students kasi have become comfortable to using it. I don't see anything wrong with using Facebook as an alternative means to reaching out to your students or for posting of announcements, for the posting of your resources or links. It could be an alternative. It's really suggested that if you're going to use it for your class, it's going to be an exclusive group. Choose who you invite in your account so that you can also restrict who are going to view them.
Yeah.
It's an alternative, especially for those who have yet to know of Zoom or Google Meet or the yung Moodle or yung Google Classroom and the other LMS. It could be an alternative. Actually, I know doon sa isang province near Davao City, as I mentioned earlier, they have been using the airwaves sa Davao de Oro.
Yeah.
They've been using the airwaves in giving instruction. May block time sila sa isang radio station. But what could improve it, I think they have already improved it kasi meron silang Facebook account to augment the radio instruction.
Yeah.
It could also be possible for us kasi yun nga, may familiarity na ang mga students natin and the teachers.
Yeah, I think that's interesting perspective kasi more people are really migrating into social media. It's not anymore against entertainment, no. It's actually merged with even professional and life, no. So actually this is interesting kasi I'm not sure if the questions are more related na parang is Messenger a safe platform for sending files, no? Kasi pero for example ito po, what if a parent wanted to have a copy of his or her child's report card kahit po picture lang through a messenger? Pwede ba yung gawin, no? So yung first. And then second daw, is it okay to just for schools to use Messenger or Facebook to give info to students, no? Yun, is that something na pwedeng gawin na practice na? Yeah.
For as long as you can ensure security, for as long as you are certain of who the audience are. But I would suggest if you have to send out, not a mere suggestion, but a strong suggestion, na if you have to send out a confidential record to a parent, first you have to verify the identity kung parent ba talaga yon. As mentioned a while back, maybe you have to know if you have to get the competent proof of identity, or maybe if it's a school assigned email, they can use that, or if it's a school registered email. Isang pwedeng paraan din to guarantee security is, what if schools submit the official emails during the enrollment, the emails of the parents, and then alam na ng school ngayon na this is a legitimate email because ito yung nakalagay sa registration niya.
Yeah.
You could give out, depending on your school policy, if you want to, you could give out school records online. Actually, we have been doing that in compliance with yung CHED requirements, Bureau of Immigration requirements. We have been sending out actually to them electronic copies of records. Wala namang bawal. Just be certain of the person whom you are sending to, yung kanyang capacity. These are considered as valid documents kasi they are electronic evidences or electronic documents, and they are accepted. Acceptable po yan.
Okay. Pero recommended po, no, via email. Ang messenger, medyo parang...
Well, ang messenger kasi is like an alternative email.
Yeah.
But ang pinagkaiba lang nila ay may thread. If you look at your Google email naman, may thread din. So it's almost the same. But sa messenger, it's parang conversation type. It's chat. For as long as ang tao sa chat is exclusive to your class lang, or if it's a parent, siya lang mag-isa ang kausap mo doon, I think it's okay.
Yeah. There's a question related to this, no? Connected again to Messenger. To what extent is it, I guess, private, no? In a sense, for example, if I was having a conversation with my teacher, for example, and then I take screenshots, right? And then sa screenshots, ipapublic siya suddenly kasi, I don't know, maybe there were things there that were not good, or it's used to say, how do you deal with that kind of sensitivities, di ba? Parang, yeah.
Ito, you cannot post anything pertaining to another person without his consent. For example, you take a picture of a stranger, post it on Facebook without his consent. That's a violation of his privacy. You have a private conversation, na screenshot mo, that's a violation of my privacy.
Yeah.
So for as long as there is no consent, it's a violation of your personal space. It's a violation of your right to privacy. Actually, that's actionable. Consent is essential.
Yeah.
It's always essential. And yung tanong mo, gaano ka private ang messenger?
Yeah.
Actually, for me, when you are online, you have to assume that it's not private because you could always be quoted or recorded. Pwede kang gawan ng meme. Anything can be done. So always, when you are online, consider what you upload, your videos or whatever, to be already public kasi nothing is public online. Even if it's a private conversation in a Facebook or Messenger chat, assume that it's never private. But strictly speaking, when we chat through Facebook Messenger, supposedly that's private kung tayong dalawa lang.
Yeah.
But if there's a third party, then it's no longer a private conversation because a third party is involved. So kaya nga, if you're in a group chat, you insulted somebody, third party already is privy to the conversation, then it could be actionable if you slander somebody online.
Yeah, that's getting more complicated now, no? Especially when there's a lot of call out, di ba? Like nagpo-post talaga sa Facebook,
Yun nga,
etc.
dati, yung mga cases, if you go to ang pinaka-popular, yung sa Arellano, yung lawfil.net, if you go to the cases on Libel, most of the cases you will read there involve media practitioners. Now, all of us could be liable for cyber libel, the cyber crime of libel. It could be possible. Hindi na lang yung mga media practitioners ngayon. All of us could be situated similarly to them.
Yeah. Okay. Sige po, thank you for that. This came from ano naman po, galing po sa Makati admission, no? Sabi niya, is it possible daw can we disclose information to parents shared in the letter of recommendation by the previous school, no? So for a student, di ba, can we inform parents yung sinasabi ng school na yon, no, about their kid, etc. Pero letter of recommendation yon, no, coming from another school. about their.
I think for that, it's a matter of school policy.
Okay.
Number one, matter of school policy. Second, what are the contents? Third, kasi ganito, you do not share information, for example, psychiatric information, if it causes great harm or undue effect to the student. So some things may be kept confidential at the discretion and the evaluation of the school. So in the end, it depends on the discretion of the school and yung kanilang policies.
Oh, that's an interesting point kasi I think there's another connected question. Sabi po dito, no, so kay Miss Magallanes, enrollment is already a form of consent. So data of parents' contact numbers are available. Can a student file a complaint under data privacy if a faculty or guidance counselor sent a text message to the parents informing the student to see the faculty or guidance counselor? Or if another related to that, for example, mental health, di ba? Parang if you're suffering from mental health and then you go to your guidance counselor, is that like, can a student say that, no? File a complaint?
No. Definitely, when you give your consent during enrollment, you consent also to the school policies. When you consent to enrollment, you consent to the student handbook and the manual operations of the school, its rules and regulations. Kasama sa protocol, kasama sa practice ng schools is to inform the parents. Kasama sa schools practices and policies perhaps yung the mechanism in which the school could communicate with the guardians. Ang sinasabing ang sinasabing violation is when the school uses the data of the students for non-school related functions. For example, binenta ng school yung iyong record sa insurance company para bentahan ng insurance ang parents. For example, dinisclose ng school ang information mo sa court, sa isang law enforcement officer kahit na walang subpoena from the court. Yun ay hindi academic related. Kasi in fact, the schools can share information of the students to, for example, the Civil Service Commission, the DepEd, the CHED, because these are mandated by law. In short, legitimate uses of information by the school within its operation and outside of the school because it's required by law are not prohibited. What is prohibited is when the information surrendered upon enrollment is used for other purposes, not school-related. Kaya nga mahalaga para mawala yung fear ng estudyante at ng mga teachers and the administrators, kailangan talaga every school has a data privacy manual and a data privacy policy. Actually, if you have not yet that, you can go to the website of the National Privacy Commission, privacy.gov.ph. May template po sila for the privacy manual, the privacy policy, and other templates po. Marami doon. Kung meron kayo niyan, and especially if you have the data privacy policy, you post it online or you post it doon sa inyong enrollment booth or enrollment area, that would tell the students na we can use this, your information you surrendered, for all legitimate school purposes or purposes that are required by the law to be complied with by the school. Pero kung don't be afraid kung faculty kayo or administrator kayo and then you send out notices to parents, kasi yun naman ang purpose, the way we get the family or the family background or yung contact details ng parents, diba? It's okay.
Okay. Kasi
remember, we have the so-called substituted parental authority. And who, as parents, as teachers, as school administrators, we act like parents. And there are some matters that we need to inform the parents about. Okay?
Yeah. I think it comes also from a perspective, I guess, na maybe some, for example, when it comes to mental health, no, and if it's family, di ba, triggered also. Some of the students might be, di ba, I told you this in confidence, so I did you, I don't know. So I think that might be the perspective where it's coming from. Then, yeah. Sige po. Dito naman po, I think some people are asking, what of the laptop or computers provided by the school? Can the employer open your laptop? Parang do they have that right to just open it? Kasi sila naman yung nagbigay ng laptop na yun sa inyo, no? Without your knowledge, no? In that sense.
There is already jurisprudence cases, alam ng mga lawyers dito yan at mga law students on the issued computers by the employer. First is you have to consider, is there a reasonable expectation to privacy? Okay. Like in our computers here in our school, they are issued and you can only access them if you type in your password, and the password is registered with the school. If you are given the password, there is a reasonable expectation of privacy. Hence, you have the right to exclude others from your personal files. But if company policy is provides that the company reserves the right to the contents of your computer, then it's open to browsing by your employer. So for the employers out there, before you give out computers, you have to clarify first kung ano ang extent ng inyong permissions when you give the computers to them. Because kahit na empleyado yan na they are using your computers and facilities, they do not shed off their constitutionally given rights when they enter into the school gates. Nakalagay po sa jurisprudence yan. We do not surrender our rights under the Bill of Rights when we are employed or when we are in the campus. Our rights remain as rights. But these are subject to restrictions that are informed, that the employer informs the employees of before they give out, for example, the computers.
It seems there seem to be parang two important tasks, no, for schools. One is to really create a data privacy manual, as in put it on paper, I think school policy. And I guess the second level, I think, which some, I guess, schools or even just institutions forget, is informing the people inside, no, na these are our policies, and you will violate it if yeah.
Remember, you cannot consent effectively if you were not informed beforehand
Correct,
of what you are consenting to. Informed consent is always essential.
Yeah. So that's a big responsibility, no, for all our audience. Ito naman po, regarding in general spaces, no, for students. Ito po ay galing po kay Sir Salvador. Attorney Edgar, in case a student uses a desktop in the school's computer hub and unwittingly left it without logging out, and another student used the same computer and was able to access and extract the former's private data, including all pictures. The latter gradually disseminated those things to friends in the school. Thereby, the latter's image was damaged. No? Who has the greater culpability? The one who neglected to log out, or the one who divulged the privacy of the person involved? And maybe the last aspect is, what's the school's take responsibility in this whole thing, no?
Parang feeling ko may actual case yan sa school tapos
yes.
advice sa lawyer. Ganito, sir, Sir Salvador. While the owner of the account bears the consequences, remember the Data Privacy Act speaks of negligence or intentional action. So, let's say naiwan ng tao ng estudyante yung kanyang account, he cannot be punished by that under the Data Privacy Act. But who can be punished is the person who accesses it now intentionally. Okay lang na nakita niya pero nag-download pa siya, nagpapakita siya ng intent. So, it's not anymore negligence ng taong nag-access. Negligently na-access niya, hindi niya nilag out, okay lang yan. Pero the fact that he accessed it and downloaded pictures and distributed it online, it shows intent. And I think the student who does that should be held liable. The school should create strong policies with regards or reminders with regards computer use. That's why in your computer laboratories, there should be posted rules for computer use. And I think it would also be helpful if the computers are set up in such a way that if there is no activity within a period of several minutes, that it automatically logs out or shuts down. for everyone's security. Nasa Windows security naman yan. Nasa options.
Nice. Okay. Thank you. O nga, sa detalye, no, I was thinking, medyo specific na itong case, no, in that sense. Ito po, sabi po ni, one of the last few questions, I guess, we'll ask, no, what if you didn't give a hard copy of the information, but you gave the information verbally? Is it still a violation of data privacy?
Yes, of course. Any processing, be it manual or automated, sharing of information is already processing of information. That is also a violation of the Data Privacy Act. Basta for as long as you are privy to the information and you share it without the other's consent for illegitimate reasons, then you could be made liable.
Yeah, whatever means, no, whether it be digital,
Yes.
through spoken, etc. No?
Malawak po yung law.
Yeah.
Opo.
Ito po, coming from an administrator, as the school head, can I just access important data without the consent of my ICT in charge? No? So in that sense, because you're the school head, do you have a cover you can access?
Po? Depende po kung ano ang nakalagay sa inyong privacy policy, privacy manual. Kasi po gumawa ako ng privacy manual, nakalagay doon ang extent ng ano ang pwedeng i-access ng administrator po. For example, if I'm the director, I can only access information that is I'm supposed to be privy with. For the deans, they can only access data that they should be only capable of accessing. In fact, as the data protection officer and as the registrar, I self-regulated myself. I cannot access, in our manual, I cannot have access to the files of the guidance office or the clinic because they are covered not only by law but their peculiar nature and their oaths in their practice of nursing or of medicine or of guidance and counseling. And I have to respect that. It depends po sa inyong privacy manual. That is why it is important for schools to set up really their data privacy manual. So it becomes the basis for practices. And when you do your privacy manuals, you have to do consultations because it is important that your manual jives with your actual practice. Yun po.
Okay, sige. So I'll just read a few more comments, no? I think many people were very happy. So galing po to kay Miss Gilda Villador. Very informative matters to note, especially in this new normal. Very good reminders for teachers and administrators to be very careful, no, in handling data and the challenging cases that confront our school, no? Many people really appreciated it, attorney. Grabe po, ang dami ko pong natutunan sa webinar na ito. I'm overwhelmed, no, by the bulk of information I'm learning from Attorney Jet, no? So thank you daw po, Attorney Jet. An excellent topic with an excellent speaker. I learned a lot today, no? So very, very good feedback po, no, attorney. And maybe I guess as we close this webinar, maybe you have some final words. And I guess connected to this, no, sabi niya, the topic is very informative. That is a must to know by most of us currently being digital citizens with the many do's and don'ts, no? Maybe you have final words for our audience today po.
Let us remember that ignorance of the law excuses no one. But for the Data Privacy Act, simple lang. Just respect the privacy of others and keep our data secured and intact. And, well, before I am going to say goodbye, again, I offer you my help for the registrars out there and the DPOs. I am sure you have taken note of my email address. You can email me anytime. I will be very glad to help out fellow registrars and data protection officers or anybody. But please be patient with me because I get a lot of emails from other audiences from the other seminars. But I will try my best to respond to your questions. Do not hesitate to reach out po. Let's help each other, especially during this very confusing times. I'm always here po.
And so thank you, Attorney Pascua. Again, thank you for the amazing insights and virtual palakpak naman po, no, for our speaker for that amazing point, no. I guess if there's just one thing, no, that I guess we should take away from this webinar, I think the word is prudence. Prudence in how we deal with data, prudence in the way also on how much we share, what we share, to what extent do we make our private lives also public online. No, I think these are the things that we are continuously negotiating, and hopefully some point, no, that the schools are really reflecting on creating data privacy um, manuals or guidelines for the school, but also maybe it's also an invitation, no, to teach also our students, I guess, of how to handle their data para hindi din tayo napupunta sa mga complicated cases, no, just like what was shared just now, no. So again, thank you again, Attorney Pascua. We would like to thank Clips also and Roxo City for being our amazing partners for this webinar. So that ends our webinar officially. Maraming salamat po sa lahat ng pumunta dito. Thank you. Thank you.